Comparison is a thief of joy because ease and hardship cannot be seen or judged or assessed with the naked eye. And I will explain to you why. It is a rather complex topic, so do try to stay focused. Here's a standard human with a mind, body, and soul. How do we know what someone is going through? Well, there are many indicators. That's all we have going for us because we don't really know, so that's why I use that word. I call it indicators, and we can refer to this as quality of life indicators. And the most common is the material indicator, and the sub-indicators include where they live, what car they drive, what clothes they wear, and so on, which can easily be seen, but things like their actual income, other assets are hardly known. And depending on the person's character, what they value more, their career or their job, these sub-indicators are going to differ in their weightage accordingly. And a low score means it's doing bad, and a high score means it's doing good. Now, even with that, we have absolutely no idea about their commitments and financial burdens, which is another mostly unknown indicator. Even if you have a large income, making sure all these are taken care of all the time is a lot of stress and therefore a form of hardship in itself. And let's say they look well off and they have their commitments under control. We still have no idea about their relationships with other people. A lot of people with money go home to an unhappy marriage and their life is terrible. And many have good jobs, but they have problems with their children at home. And if they are good parents, the weightage there is going to be bigger and the scores low, so it will significantly impact their happiness, and a big part of their life feels like a terrible hardship. And there are other big things that we don't know about. There are physical or physiological indicators. For example, if they're struggling with health conditions, how many people lead a good life only to suffer with cancer for years and die? And how many people are suffering lifelong, chronic, debilitating pains? Health is wealth, and many would trade their material well-being for better health. And what if despite everything being good, good job, decent amount of money, not suffering any diseases or have any significant issues with other people in their lives, but they struggle immensely with their mental state or their psychological health? Many struggle with cognitive issues or neurological disorders that makes it really hard for them to manage their lives. And you can ask people with ADHD, or people who've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder or generalized anxiety disorder, or people who've been diagnosed as psychopath, and some people have major depressive disorder and so on. And the more these things affect their life, the higher the weightage and the lower the score. So overall, it negatively impacts their quality of life, and they undergo an invisible hardship, even though on the outside they look well and things appear good with their lives. And some people have everything going good or appear to be going good, but they have a poor connection with God and they feel like something's missing, something important and something crucial is incomplete, like a splinter in their minds. And I borrowed that quote from The Matrix, but they can't put their finger on it. And nothing material or nothing physical and nothing social can fill this void in their hearts, and they go through life with an invisible torment. And this is a form of hardship that they will either face now in their lifespan or after that. But we'll get to that later. So the first takeaway here is that there are so many indicators and even more sub-indicators about someone's life that we don't know about. The second takeaway is that even if we do know, there's no standard, accurate way of measuring these things. And the last takeaway is that because there are so many factors, things start to look more even, more fair, if you may, when you take everything into account about someone's life. And you start to see that it's not all rainbows and sunshine for everyone. Everyone is going through something. And we know this to be true because we know that the true nature of this life is that it's a test, and everyone will be tested in their own ways. Now, despite this reality, how do people portray themselves? Of course, people are going to cherry pick only the best things that they got going on in their lives and exaggerate it. And in the context of what I'm showing here, people choose only their highest scoring indicators to be displayed to the world, the best version of themselves in social media or other social or public settings. And that's if people are being honest. Many are just faking it. So in the case where people are being honest, this cherry picking and glazing and exaggeration is still going to result in what is known in statistics as the overrepresentation of skewed, narrow, fake, flawed, outlier data instead of the average data. And in any assessment, garbage in, garbage out. So because the data coming in is garbage, we also get garbage results. So we get skewed, narrow, fake, flawed picture of reality. And we think being rich and famous is the norm for most people. We think that being happy is the normal state for most people. Having this, having that, accomplishing this, accomplishing that are the normal, average, and even standard things in society, when that is far from the truth. And no wonder so many people feel so depressed and sad. We think we never have enough, never happy enough, never accomplish enough, and so on. And some people feel disillusioned by the system and angry with the whole thing, and they completely reject it. Some people seclude themselves from it. And some people fall into the rat race and they succumb to this societal pressure that we did to ourselves, and they become overcome by greed and ambition to achieve wealth, power, fame by any means necessary. So we did this to ourselves. We make terribly flawed assessments about each other. We succumb to our own lies. We believe our own lies to be the truth, and we spiral down this endless cycle. So the injustice comes from us, not from God. And that is why God says in the Quran, God does not wrong people in the least, but it is people who wrong themselves. But just these indicators, they don't even out the playing field completely. That requires what I call the X factors, the great levelers or the great balancers that makes the playing field truly even and fair. Now let's have a look. The X factors include the first one, external and direct help from God. And we take an extreme example where God made the fire cool for Prophet Ibrahim a.s. And for people like me and you, the average guy, God can change the heart of the person that you have a problem with, and so on. Meaning that the situation is solved by God directly without you coming into the picture. And the second one there is internal help from God, where God imbues a person with iman or faith and other virtues which allows them to carry the weight of their hardship. That's why it is said that you are tested according to your level of faith and spiritual potential. So on the right side, if your faith increases, so would your tests on the left side. Similarly, if these indicators on the left, they get heavy, either it means your iman is worthy of that level of hardship, or that your spiritual potential is high enough and would grow to that level that is worthy of such hardship or tests on the left side. In other words, you were given something to increase your spiritual station. Then, of course, number 3, we have these inherent or developed capabilities, which are all ultimately from God, which includes your intelligence, your IQ, EQ, physical and mental strength, emotional maturity and stability, and so on. So the first 3 X factors, these are the determinants of whether what you're going through, your circumstances, is actually an ease or hardship at that point in time. It's all from God. It's not the things on the left side. So 2 people can be waiting in line and get stuck in the same traffic, meaning that they're going through the same test objectively, but one person's X factor from God made it feel easy, while it feels like hell for the other person. The other guy has no iman, no faith, no understanding, no mental strength, no emotional maturity, and so on. So it's a hardship for the other guy and it's an ease for the other person, even though it's the same test. So this is why if you sell your soul, meaning you give up on God and you give up a lot of things on the right hand side here, that side is going to get pretty light. And to balance what you have given up, these things on the left hand side can also get lighter, meaning you may get a lot of the world in exchange for your soul, but you have no idea what you've given up. And you have to remember there are other dimensions, and you may get punished on earth over time, and you will definitely be punished in the hereafter. And losing God's blessings in these indicators on the left may also mean that your worldly gains won't last. So even these elements don't completely balance the unseen scale, because some things are balanced or compensated or recompensed over time, and some even in the hereafter, in another stage of existence. And we'll cover this in the next slide. But the key takeaway here is that ease and hardships are complex, multi-factors, multi-indicators, multi-dimensional, multi-existence even. And this complex balancing happens on an unseen scale. And that is a terminology that I believe it's coined by Yasmin Mujahid. So she gets the credit for that. The indicators of one's ease or hardship, or the circumstances, or what we refer to as the quality of life indicators, will be balanced with these X factors. And we know this to be true because God says that no one will be burdened beyond what they can bear. Now let's look at the final two X factors which operates across space and time and even existence. Here's that person again with all his attributes and faculties, all possible indicators and X factors on the X-axis and the magnitude of those indicators and X factors on the Y-axis. And if we follow the scoring methodology shown in the first slide, then the unit here could be the score at that point. But we have to add the Z-axis here, new dimension here, which represent the flow of space and time. And the unit here could be the duration, the frequency, the time, the place of occurrence across space and time as we move from the past into the present and into the future. And throughout space and time, your quality of life indicators and X factors will change and fluctuate, meaning it's dynamic. For example, the trouble with money that you have now will be easier later on. You enjoy excellent health now, but suffer disease in the future. Hardship with your children now, but your children takes care of you in the future. You live in a terrible place now, but move to a much better place later on, and so on. And you can see some Quranic verses which forms this principle. So some things balances itself over time, but this does not fully balance everything, because some people suffer injustice to the very end. And here is where the hereafter comes in. As the body dies, the mind dies, but the soul lives on after death. And here, everyone will be paid their recompense in full. No one will face any more injustice, and everyone will be rewarded or punished according to their deeds. And you can look at these Quranic verses for reference. And some people, as I mentioned before, sell their souls to get the world, right? So they have nothing here in the hereafter, so they may get the world, but what does God say about them? That they forfeit the everlasting hereafter. Anyhow, so the key takeaway here is that the X factors, they regulate your ease and hardship, both the magnitude and the dynamics over space and time. So you can imagine an unseen scale on the X and Y axis and another balancing on the Z axis, which crosses over to the hereafter even. So it's like a four-way scale, delicately yet perfectly balanced. Why? Because the nature and reality of life as a test and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attribute of the most just will be made manifest, and therefore every soul will be treated justly. Now you know why comparison is a thief of joy. It's really futile to do so, and it is also a deception of Satan to make us feel bad about ourselves, to make us think bad about God and his attributes, to make us think that he is unkind, cruel, unjust, and so on. And of course, to make jealousy, envy, hatred prevalent among human beings, to lead us astray from the reality of this world, our real purpose and our true destination.